Good evening, everybody, and then thanks for coming, and thank you, Accenture, for hosting this beautiful event. So I'm going to take this slightly different direction and explain about how major energy companies are where they are and what they're thinking about, and actually how they need to be far more adaptive and agile, and so it's a much more strategic view of organizations, how we get our power. So what I'm going to talk about is these capital projects. So capital projects power the world. So these are major energy investments. So this is a nuclear reactor here. That's probably going to cost you $40 billion for one of those. This is an offshore asset which I was involved in the engineering and construction of. At the time, it was the world's largest floating thing ever built. It's a huge asset. This is what you'll see in Qatar. Qatar is about to spend $100 billion on these investments. So these capital projects, what I'm talking about is multi-billion-dollar investments, and they power the world, right? This is where the energy comes from. And what I'm going to say is that actually we can accelerate the way we deliver these projects 50 to 70% faster. I think 75% faster. That's real, and the whole industry is about to be radically disrupted. So we're an industry where we make a great deal of money. So we will invest many billions of dollars, and the returns are phenomenal. So the ability to develop these assets faster is hugely profitable. So here's the brutal reality, and you can figure out, you can think a lot about why this is the case. But I was just reading some McKinsey surveys, some McKinsey analysis on this, and so firstly, I understand that capital projects are about 35% of the world's gross domestic product. It's a big part of what we spend our money on in the world. 98% of these projects, mega projects. So when you say mega projects, you're talking about over $1 billion, which is not much. They all face schedule and cost overruns. And I've worked on quite a few mega projects, and at first I thought it was maybe it's a specific project, but no, actually the data is showing that the vast majority, 98% of projects, do not meet the schedule and cost overruns. So much so that it's become known, kind of informally, as the iron law of capital projects. Over schedule, over cost, over and over again. Right? So if you think about 25% of the world's GDP, and all of this business is actually low margin. They're not making money. So it's considered a low margin industry. And these projects, so have you heard of the Sun Cable project? Singapore?
No. From here to Australia.
So Singapore is about to set up a solar farm in Australia and run a cable to Singapore. It's about $20 billion to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a project in the US, about $6 billion. This is a famous project in Japan, which was spent many years developing, about $15 billion at least to develop, and never generated 1 watt of power. Called Monju is the nuclear power plant that was both designed and built and never generated 1 watt of power. It's a fascinating story. These projects are big and they take a long time. So here's the thing, is that given this, there is hundreds of
billions of dollars of waste happening in this industry. And everyone recognizes it, and everyone's looking at this saying, why is this happening? And I think now the times are changing, where we're starting to recognize that the ways that these projects are being done, something fundamentally is changing. We are now entering into a different world where this is no longer going to be the case. So let me give you some thoughts about what I think is coming. So firstly, just the pictures here. That factory there, that's Tesla Giga Shanghai. I don't know now. Like Tesla, these factories were the largest buildings ever made, and some of them are so big that actually clouds form inside them. So Tesla Giga went from an empty plot of land to production of its first car in 11 months. 11 months. So they have radically rethought how investments in these capital projects, these large factories work. Their priority was to deliver value, build cars. 11 months is unheard of. It's not. And so this world of these massive investments is changing. This is the 6th generation fighter aircraft coming from Saab. So Saab is developing this incredibly sophisticated aircraft. And I think they started engineering it about a year ago. They haven't built anything, they haven't made anything, but they're already flying the aircraft. It's like, well, hang on. How do you fly the aircraft that you're going to make before you make it? Right. So this is the world we're entering into now. So what you're going to see in these massive investments is engineering phases that radically reduce. So I'm working on a large gas asset platform to be built. And we spent about 1 year just deciding the concept, what we're going to build and where. Then we spent 2 years in what's called feed, which is essentially kind of like, okay, so put a bit more structure around that. What does it look like? What are the high-level processing units? Then another 2 years in detailed design, right? So this is all engineering. It's like, this is where the pipes go. This is how, it's about 5.5 years. That's going to happen in about 6 months soon. That thousands of engineers that were developing this is going to radically shift very soon. So engineering phases from years to months is coming. So I was speaking to an executive recently from an oil major, and so what's going to happen is they're going to transition from, I'm building one huge asset, which is, one and done. We make one, we build it, and we're done. To a product mindset. So hang on, well, how does that work? How am I going to build an offshore gas platform, which is a product? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it didn't 5 years ago, but actually now it does. And what we're seeing is that our physical assets are becoming less relevant than the digital assets. And so what we're doing, and I'll talk a bit more about this in a minute, is that the digital assets become the real value. So speaking to an executive vice president recently, so it's like, so all the projects we're delivering have been subject to the iron law. What is it we can do to get faster? And we're talking a lot about modularity. So you familiar with modularity, and most energy majors will understand modularity in terms of, okay, so try and make stuff which is engineered, but they won't get organizational aspects of modularity and how to actually accelerate. So modularity means your organization is modular, not just your products. So what's coming is modular designs which change rapidly. So 5 years ago, we made a decision to buy a particular compressor for this. These compressors are massive. So we locked ourselves into engineering decisions years and years and years ago. Oh, so now we find out that the supply chain is constrained, so we can't get that compressor. Okay, so now what do we do? Our engineering needs to be fast enough to say, no, change your compressor. So the engineering, if the supply chain cannot give you what you want, you need to change your design so rapidly to be able to cater for it. Right? So the what's coming is the flexible, fast engineering models. You can change the designs rapidly. And of course, construction-wise, so what we're talking about is I spoke to some executives about, it's almost like construction becomes an afterthought now, and they didn't like that. so because construction is been, if you do it right in the model, you're actually building in the model. So let me talk a bit more about this. So here's some examples. So you've heard of digital twins? Yeah? You all have digital twins. You may not know it, but you all have digital twins. They're all mapping what you're doing and trying to think the way you think. So the digital twins now are shifting much more earlier into the engineering phase. So what that means is, imagine that I'm going to build, let's say I'm an energy major, and that I want to build an offshore gas platform in the middle of nowhere, or and so I go out and say I would like this platform. So what's coming is the engineering behind it will basically say, well, okay, so you want a platform, this is more or less the specifications, let's generate a digital twin immediately. How do you generate a digital twin of an asset that's not been built? The point is then your organization now has completely changed the way that they operate and manage data. So if you want to be a supplier to me, I must have live feeds to your data. Every gas platform in the world, I would like live feeds of the data. So when a client comes to me now, I have live telemetry from many different assets and many different suppliers. So I create a digital twin of the best known example now. I can then iterate off it. So, what if we improve this compressor? What would that take? What would that take? So what's happening now is there's a shift. It's now the data is your competitive advantage. So you live in a cyber physical world. So you're jumping from a physical to the cyber world where so every sprint now. So let's say I'm building an offshore platform that hasn't been built. How do I deliver every value every sprint? How do I iterate? Well, yeah, because now you have a digital asset, which has cost a huge amount of money because it's sucking in all this data from live assets. So you're iterating off a digital version. So that's what the Saab 6th generation fighters are doing, because they have aircraft in the air and they're taking live telemetry. So it means every iteration, I'm actually building the digital version. So what competitive means, in what's coming, what is competitive is your AI superiority. So when a client comes to you and says, I would like this offshore platform, it's about how quickly you can generate that digital twin. How can you generate that digital twin means how much data are you sucking in from around the world? And that's expensive, right? So you are now creating an environment where your digital asset is actually your primary value. What the executives I was speaking to recently were saying was, well, we're not a factory. We don't manufacture these assets. They're one and done. Like this is a Gulf of Mexico asset. Gulf of wherever it is. Anyway, so this asset, we build one. That was true, but not anymore. Because now I have an ability to continuously iterate and build these assets digitally. I know we're going to need these assets. There's plenty of them coming. So you've shifted it to the digital world. Of course, standardization. The point is that you need to be able to rapidly iterate in the physicality of the asset. The thinking of most major energy majors now is, I only have a physical asset. I build one, I can't improve it. That's gone. That physicality has morphed now. If you're not being able to iterate in a digital world, I was talking to some of the engineers from some of the nuclear submarines in the UK, and they're talking about, well, for a nuclear submarine, how do we iterate off this? How do we build this? We can't build many of them and iterate. So what they're saying is, well no, it's a modular structure, and we can iterate digitally because we have the data. So what's happening now is the digital world and the physical world are getting kind of mixed. And you need to be able to jump between digital and physical all the time. So even now, this picture of this is from our construction site at the moment. So we're building this asset, and we have inspectors that go out and check everything. And these inspectors are very skilled, and they're looking at structure, they're looking at the electrical systems, but they can't see everything. They can't look at everything. So now what's happening is they're able to, they have a digital support, they have a digital friend, they now work with digital friends. So they're able to take a picture. This is straight off the construction unit. They're able to take a picture, and the AI is now able to segment, oh, this is a particular spool, this is a correct support, this is a temporary support. You've got a manufacturing defect. So it's like, so the inspector now can just using the phone, take a picture, and AI can then segment, right, so we've seen this before, your construction has an issue, I'll talk to. So the point is now is individuals are less looking at reports because they're too slow, and it's like you've got an AI friend. I'm not saying we've achieved all of this, but it's aspirational. So when I'm doing my work, I'm always talking to my AI support saying, what do you think of that? I don't like that because they've done this temporary support. So what you've done is you've taken the physical world and you've jumped into the cyber world. And so the world of construction is changing now. So it's changing because all the work is done in the digital world, and it's accelerating quickly. But the interesting thing is it means that people need to think and work very, very differently. So it's like you've got to interact, like if you got to be friends with your AI friend, and you got to help your AI friend because you know what, they're much smarter than you, and if you work right, you'll be incredibly productive. But it feels weird, right? It's a different way of working. And it's coming fast. So a data-driven operating model, data is value. Data is the new oil. Data is expensive, and you need to make decisions about how much to invest. So firms like Tesla, for example, when they're redesigning engines, so what they'll say is, well, okay, so we know engines require, this structure that requires some copper, the windings. They actually have data farms. I don't mean server farms, I mean data farms. So what they'll do is they'll get all different gauges of copper wire, they'll get all different gauges of engine materials, they'll stress test them, they'll continuously testing all sorts of materials, destructive testing constantly of materials to feed AI. So when in the factory, when they go and say, okay, so how can we improve this engine design? It can do it instantly. But the data, so what they've done is thought through expensive data collection, right? So what it means is now everyone is responsible for managing data and helping the AI digest the data. Does it not make sense? Yeah, it doesn't, but hey, look, this is happening so quickly. So I'm really interested in sharing more and talking more, and so I speak to clients and I help organizations try and digest what's coming. We've seen these are all oil and gas majors. So please, like, if you're interested in talking about this sort of thing, let's talk further. I did publish a book on it. So far, good response, but a lot of uncertainty from executives. They're like, well, okay, well, hang on. So everything we thought was normal is now changing. But the result is, like, as I mentioned, some of those gas assets, like that big gas asset, every day delay is about $20 million lost in revenue. The money's staggering, and I think the world needs more energy. And what's more is because our way of developing energy assets is so slow that alternative energies and new energies become sidelined because our engineering is not fast enough and adaptive enough to be able to create new things. We need to get much more agile, we need much faster at developing these assets and in a more sustainable way. Anyway, thank you very much. I don't know if you have any questions.